Hello, and welcome to Finder and Keeper, the podcast, a podcast for the woman who is on a journey of finding herself and keeping herself. I'm Ashley, and I'm your host. Today, we're asking ourselves, what if faith and therapy were never meant to compete? What if they're both part of the same healing language? One speaks to our spirit and one to our soul. So today, I'm sitting down with someone who embodies that balance. A faith-based licensed psychotherapist and community advocate who devoted her career to helping people, especially veterans and those in Black and Brown communities, bridge the gap between faith and mental health. Please welcome Lakeisha Johnson. Well, Keisha, I have been looking forward to having this conversation with you. Faith and therapy are two things that I'm very passionate about.
Yeah.
So I've been looking forward to this all week. I love the way that you have weaved faith and therapy together in your work. And I feel like this is going to be a much needed conversation for our audience. So, how are you feeling today about this conversation?
I'm excited. Let's get into it.
So, I think a lot of us grew up in spaces where therapy was not really a thing. Therapy
Yeah.
wasn't talked about at all. For me personally, therapy did not exist. I was told to go to church, pray. Prayer is powerful. But as I got older, I started to realize sometimes prayer can lead you to therapy. Did you grow up with those two as partners, or what kind of made you start to realize that therapy and faith can coexist?
Yeah, so the way that I grew up, they were two separate things. Like, anybody that knows me, you don't even have to know me personally. Anybody that knows me knows that my dad is a pastor. Me and my sisters, we were heavily involved in ministry. Like, since we were kids, we didn't have a choice. Typical PK duties, and so when it came to church and Sunday mornings or even like Bible studies, mental health was not something that was talked about like at all. It was never a thing that I heard about. I want to say maybe like towards like my junior year or my senior year of high school, that's when I started hearing the term mental health being talked about in the pulpit. But even with that, like the term therapy was never brought up. So it was always like two separate things that never deemed as if it could coexist together. I think that a lot of people that are in religious and spiritual spaces, they don't understand the importance of making sure that we identify like the things that are concerning to our mental health, but then also connecting them to our spirituality as well. When I talk to people about stuff like this, I always bring up holistic healing, because if we are talking about healing in any type of aspect, or if we're talking about our mental health in any type of aspect, we also have to bring up our physical health. We also have to bring up our spiritual health and our emotional health. All of those things coexist together, and if one of them is off, then the other one is going to be affected too. So around, like I said, around like my junior or my senior year of high school, that's when I started hearing the term mental health like talked about within the church space. Now, luckily, the church that I was a part of, it's my family's church, and the lead pastor of that church still currently now is my first cousin, and my dad is one of his assistants. And they talk a lot about mental health and therapy now. When I was growing up, they didn't. But now they do. And he even has a program, I think it's like a mental health, like first aid program now, where some of the ministers or people just working in ministry at the church can kind of like sign up and get this certificate if they take a class for mental health 101. And I know also they have like a lot of like clinical social workers that go to the church as well. I know my cousin Sybil, which is his wife, so the first lady of the church, she's actually a psychiatric nurse. Yeah, so now that a lot of things in the world has changed, a lot of different things have happened, and mental health concerns are kind of like at the surface. I feel like the church had no other way to ignore it. You know what I mean? Like, it's not something that we can just kind of like sweep under the rug anymore. Like, no, people are choosing to take their lives like daily now. Like, depression is literally like making people soak. You know what I mean? Like, anxiety is something that's become so prevalent that it affects the way that people interact with others and the way they show up in the world. So it's not something that we can sweep under the rug anymore. So one thing that I will say is, once I started getting closer to like entering college, they did start to talk about it a lot more. We even had like a mental health ministry that we ended up creating as well. Yeah, and it was a thing where we really just created so people could come and like get connected to resources type deal. So yeah, but going backwards, when I was younger, yeah, it was definitely something that was not talked about at all. And I don't know why. I feel like there's several reasons why the term therapy isn't necessarily brought up. Like you said earlier, some pastors like kind of just beat you over the head with the Bible and tell you to just pray about it and you'll be fine. I don't know where that came from, because like that's not logical at all. Sometimes when I go into these churches and I talk to these pastors or like their leadership teams about mental health and the connection of it between like our spiritual health and different things like that, I try my best to press the fact to them that Jesus literally has like put people in position to be able to help people when it comes to their mental health.
Exactly.
I like to connect, I like to use the example of our physical health when I talk about mental health, right? So like, if somebody come to you and they tell you like, oh, I think I have cancer, I think I have a tumor, you're not going to tell them to just pray about it and just let the Lord handle it. No, you're going to tell them, okay, go to the doctor, you need to get some tests ran, you need to let them do X, Y, and Z, blah, 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 blah. Our mental health is the same way. You know what I mean? You're not, you telling somebody to go pray about their situation is honestly, in my opinion, it shows the lack of awareness and knowledge that churches, especially African American churches, have concerning mental health. And I think sometimes, like, when we think about like leadership within churches, some people can be very prideful and not want to admit that they do not have the resources that they do, or that they do not have the knowledge or the wisdom to be able to help in certain areas. But I think what we're doing is really just being a disservice to the people within the congregation when we're not being honest and vocal with them about the fact that we may not necessarily have the resources, but I know I can have somebody that I can connect you to help you in that area.
Yeah. And I think that's really powerful, because I feel like we are kind of getting to a point where we're starting to realize that God can work through therapists. God can work through doctors. And I'm glad that we're finally getting away from that, because I kind of wonder how it would have been if we did have those resources prior to everything that has happened. Now, you had said that that you, like, towards the end of your senior and junior year, you started to see that coming in. Did that kind of make you want to go the route of mental health, like therapy, or did you already have like a different degree or career path you were wanting to take?
Girl, honestly, no. I wasn't thinking nothing about no mental health. I was not thinking nothing about no mental health. Now, I will say, like, looking back on my life, and I'm saying looking back on my life like I'm 35 or something.
Right,
like,
you're young.
Literally. But just thinking about, even like from elementary school on up, like I've always been the friend that was like the problem solver. I've always been the person that people came to like for advice or for wisdom or for words of comfort, different things like that. And even when I think about some of the ways that I was like being used in ministry at a young age, it was always like in the vein of like mentoring and different things like that. So I feel like I'm not going to say I feel like, I know that this is something that the Lord has literally placed in my DNA. So even though I wanted to go a different route and do something else, I was always going to end up here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's funny that you say that, because I remember when we played sports together, you were the person that was on the team that was usually doing the pep talks, being like, come on, y'all, we got to do this. So
especially basketball. I ain't gonna lie, y'all know I did not want to be there. Now, volleyball, okay, but basketball, nah, I ain't want to be there for
yeah, got to give the pep talks just to make it through. So
no,
it
literally,
it makes sense for you. It makes sense.
Yes. But no, so like going into my freshman year of college, I actually took a lot of people don't know this. I took a semester off before immediately going to college, because number one, I had my heart set on going to University of Akron. I don't even know why I wanted to go there. I was just trying to get out of my parents' house for real. I didn't even have a reason. I'm just like, I don't want to be in Indiana. I just need to go. But things just did not work out with that. Like everything just kind of like crumbled. So I ended up taking a semester off, just trying to like figure out what it was that I exactly wanted to do, what school I wanted to go to, all those different types of things. During that, it was literally so God ordained for real, because during that semester that I took off, my grandmother, she had Alzheimer's, and it had gotten super, super bad to the point that she couldn't stay in her own home by herself. So she ended up moving into our house. Now granted, like Tish, my middle sister, she was away playing basketball. And then my older sister, Aisha, she has just always been the person that just do what she want to do, you know? So she had already had her own family. She was moved out, all those different types of things. So it was really just me, my mom, my dad, and then my grandma when she ended up moving in with us. So the way that transition ended up happening was my dad, he also is a clinical engineer, aside from what he does as far as pastoring. So like during the day, he would be doing his clinical engineer stuff. And then of course some evenings he would have to go to the church. A lot of evenings he had to go to the church. And then my mom, she ended up changing her work schedule, and instead of working during the days, she was working nights, so that way she could be at home with my grandma during the day to help take care of her. So I remember when I took that semester off, girl, I was working at Chase Bank. I was like, I don't know why I'm up here doing this. I was working at Chase Bank on Washington Street, and it was so irritating. Like, you know, Washington Street, everybody come in there. So I'm seeing people, and they looking at me like, girl, what are you, like, because people knew me to be the smart person in school. So they're like, why are you up here working at Chase? Like, what is happening?
Yeah.
So honestly, it was a humbling experience. And now that I think back on it, like during that time, I felt like I was carrying some type of like guilt, resentment, and embarrassment, because like I knew that I was supposed to be in school, starting my So it was a really like humbling season for me. But I say all that to say, my grandmother moving in with us is what got me into mental health, because when it comes to people who are diagnosed with any type of cognitive delay, so Alzheimer's, dementia, different things like that, they oftentimes that's accompanied with like depression and anxiety, and some mood disorders can start to come to play as well. So with her, she was experiencing a lot of depression, a lot of anxiety and irritability. She had insomnia really, really bad. Like she would not sleep like at all. But it was also because like she had her days and her nights mixed up. So throughout the day, she would sleep a lot. And then at night, she was just up. And then she also started to experience some like symptoms of psychosis, which is the population that I work with now. So she would start to experience like auditory and visual hallucinations. Like she would think that she was like seeing people standing in the hallways and stuff like that. Of course, around that time, I'm like, girl, do I need to plead the blood of Jesus in this house? Because I don't know. Like, at that time, I didn't know nothing about mental health for real. So I'm just like, you're tripping.
Like, what are you
like,
saying?
Yes, like, let me know.
Let me know.
Yes. So yeah, during that time, like, I'm grateful when I look back on that time, Now I'm very grateful of it. But when I was in the midst of it, which is a lot of times what a lot of us do, when the Lord puts us in situations while we're in the thick of it, we're complaining, we're crying, we're pouting, we don't understand what's going on, right? But the Lord is always going to reveal to you why he has things set up the way that he does. So me going through that process with her was very trying. I ended up going to Ball State for a semester. I knew daggone well I wasn't supposed to go up there, but I went anyways. I flunked out. Like, I think I had a GPA of like 1.75, which is literally insane. Dang. Yes, I was tripping. But it was, a lot of it was because I was distracted. The person I was dating at the time, it was just a mess. And then I was worried about my grandmother as well. I was worried about I was worried about like how my mom and my dad was navigating throughout that process with her. So it was really just a lot. And I was constantly like coming back and forth from school to home. I don't think it was ever like a consistent, maybe like 3 weekends in a row where I stayed up there. I was always coming back. So I ended up flunking out of Ball State. During that time, I was trying to study radiology. I was like, you know what? I think doing ultrasounds would be cool. Like, I want to try that. Girl, anatomy whooped me. I said, y'all don't have to worry about me. Y'all don't got to worry about me at all. So when I ended up coming back home, I ended up transferring to IUPUI, and that's when everything started to make sense for me. Everything started to fall into place. So my grandmother, she lived with Alzheimer's for 10 years, and she ended up passing away. It would have been the beginning of my sophomore year, but because I took that semester off, it was the end of my freshman year of college. So she passed away during that time, and I still didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I ended up taking like a college like readiness career exploration class or whatever, and they started to talk about clinical social work and how if you get your clinical social work degree, like, of course, you got to get your bachelor's, then your master's, and you got to take 2 exams to get your therapy license. But they was, like, telling us all the different avenues that you could go into when it comes to clinical social work. And I was like, you know what? Yeah. That sound like me. Like, that sound like who I am already. So I ended up pursuing that degree. Around that time, I ended up also becoming a grief facilitator at this place called Brooks Place for Grieving Children. Wow. Literally, actually, I promise you, the Lord did all of this. So from that class, one of our homework assignments was we had to go to like this like expo thing that they had set up on campus, and it was just a lot of different organizations there, and they basically just wanted you to like get connected to one of the organizations and like write a paper about it. So I ended up stumbling across Brooks Place. They had a table set up there, and this was literally right when my grandmother had passed away as well. So I'm talking to them, and they're like, yeah, you know, we basically put people through a class so that they can become certified to be grief facilitators. Also, if you are in the process of grieving from losing a loved one, like, this would be a really good experience for you, blah, 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 blah. So I ended up getting connected to that, and that helped me a lot with my grief too, because when my grandmother passed away, when I say this, a lot of people like, Keisha, why would you say something like that? But I was relieved. Genuinely, I was relieved. I was relieved because I get it. Yes, I really wanted her to just be at rest. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like waking up confused every single day, like just being very much like incoherent. Yeah, like that's not cool. So I was very much relieved, but also I suppressed my grief and I suppressed my feelings. And the reason why I did that is because while she was living with us for so long, I didn't have the opportunity to really tap into my emotions and say how I felt about anything, because I was just there to be of service to my parents and help them out, you know? I remember one time I was so depressed, and I remember this is when I was taking anatomy still, and I was super, super stressed out. I remember I came home, I had books and notes just spread around the kitchen table, and girl, I had put a lasagna in the oven, and I was trying to take the lasagna out of the oven. Girl, the whole thing flipped over in the oven. And I just started crying. I just started bawling tears, crying. That's how you know. Yes,
Let's say you know.
my dad was like, he should go upstairs. I got it, go upstairs. So right then and there, I was like, all right, some gotta give.
Yeah.
But yes, so I say all that to say, literally, the Lord ordered my steps like from day one. I used to have a lot of questions of like, well, dang, like why did Tish get to go play basketball at school? Why Isha moved out with her family and I'm the youngest person here. I've been the one that has got to experience the least amount of life, but I'm also the one that has to take on this responsibility of basically being a caregiver for my grandmother until she passes away. Like, why me? You know? But like,
and
literally, little did I know, all of it started to make sense because, like I said, even the internship that I had to do for my master's program, I ended up getting placed at Eskenazi in the psychosis center. And I knew nothing about psychosis at all. So even though I was picking up on some of the stuff that my grandmother was like experiencing as far as her symptoms and stuff, none of it started to really click and make sense to me until I was like sitting in front of some of these patients that I was dealing with. So yeah, it was really the experience that I had with my grandmother that got me into the mental health field. Of course, on top of that, like my own mental health struggles as well. I wholeheartedly believe that the Lord allows us to experience things firsthand, so that way we can be able to help other people through those experiences.
I believe that too.
There's a scripture that says that we're overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the words of our testimony. Like, I wouldn't be able to have a testimony to share to somebody if I haven't been through anything, you know?
Exactly.
So when I think about like my own experiences with my mental health and the anxiety and the depression that I've experienced, and there was even a time where I was having suicidal ideation as well. It was right when I was getting ready to graduate from my master's program. I think a lot of it was just the weight of like life, the pressure of being perfect, me not really knowing like where I was getting ready to work at, girl, dealing with these dudes, these situationships that just be wrecking us sometimes. It was just a lot going on. It was a lot going on, and I did not know how to handle it at all. And a lot of what I do with my practice right now, as far as therapy goes, is helping people learn how to regulate their emotions and identifying like the difference between an emotion and a feeling and different things like that, and how to give language to what it is that you're feeling rather than just allowing your emotions to control you. During that time, God literally was sitting me down and showing me like, okay, this is what your practice is going to be. I need you to feel this first, you know? So I feel like now I'm better able to really like relate to my clients and understand like where they're coming from, because I too have experienced certain things.
Yeah, it's crazy when you just look at how, like you said, how all your steps were ordered. Keisha, however many years ago, wouldn't have known that Keisha now is literally helping people get through all types of situations, on panels, having conversations about mental health, at the church, speaking about it. So it's honestly a blessing just to be able to, I hate to say, like, it sucks to have that experience, but to be able to speak to other people and make them feel seen, I think is really great. Now, moving on to the communities that you work with. So you work with veterans and Black and Brown communities. And these are we are typically people who are praised for our resilience, and that strength is, well, vulnerability, I'll say, is not a safe space. How do you have conversations in therapy with people who have kind of learned that suppressing our emotions is how we survive?
Yeah. Honestly, the top two people that I experience difficulty with when it comes to that topic is successful Black women and males, whether they're African American, white, any race. But
why is that?
It makes perfect sense to me, because okay, so when you think about successful Black women, look at us. When we are in these professional spaces, if we are vocal about the way that we feel about something, or if we don't watch our tone or different things like that, people are immediately looking at us like, oh no, she's doing too much, or this is isn't an appropriate space for her to talk to us like that, and different things like that. So we've always been put in the position to where we have to filter ourselves, and kind of just put like barriers up so that we can fit into these different spaces. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when it comes to successful Black women and choosing to suppress their emotions, I really think that number one, it's a trauma response. And also number two, people just don't give us the safe space to be able to be vocal about the way that we feel. And a lot of times men experience the same thing. Now, with me working with veterans, and so before I got into like working with veterans who have psychosis, I was just working with veterans that who was experiencing like trauma, depression, anxiety, different stuff like that, right? I have noticed very quickly that those things are like two completely, they on two different ends, right?
Spectrums,
so yeah. So now all veterans experience that, as far as them like suppressing their emotions and feeling like it's better for them to just kind of like be quiet about how they feel and different things like that. All veterans, that is one common thing that I have picked up on with them. But I think that that's because of the way that they were conditioned when it comes to them being in service. They have to be in defense mode all the time, right? I don't have time to be talking about I'm scared when we in this field getting bombed up. Like, I don't have time for that. Like, what? So, for them, like, they were conditioned in that way. So, regardless if, I can't remember how long it takes to build a habit. I want to say it's like 4 weeks. I think it's
like 21 days.
Something like that. Yeah, something like that. But it takes a short amount of time to build a habit, right? So when you think about these veterans who are consistently having to be in defense mode, they're picking up on that very quickly. So if you look at the way we are naturally like wired as humans, our first instinct is to feel, right? Now, we may not know how to express what we're feeling in the most appropriate way, but our first instinct is to feel. If you have been in an environment that has conditioned you to kind of like shut off your feelings, suppress your feelings, because at the end of the day, you got to show up, you got to execute, you got to do X, Y, and Z, then that's going to become your new normal. So then we have to work extra hard to kind of like rewire your nervous system and your mind to be back within its original state, which is to allow yourself to identify what it is that you're feeling and then express what it is that you're feeling. So a lot of veterans lack the ability to be able to do that. When it comes to males specifically, pray for our men. The reason why I say that, though, I have a very like special place in my heart when it comes to the men that I work with, my clients, because I feel like society has done them a disservice, a big disservice. People do not give them the space to feel. And then when they give them the space to feel and they express how they feel, people take what they tell them that they are feeling and they throw it back in their face, or they try to use it against them, you know? A lot of men, their number one go-to emotion is anger, because they've never been taught anything else. They feel like they have to be masculine at all times, and they feel as if I'm into with my emotions, or if I'm telling you how I'm feeling, that's stripping away my masculinity. But in reality, you allow yourself to be vulnerable is what's making you stronger. When we suppress our emotions, they start to take a toll on us. They weigh on us. They even start to affect your physical health as well, you know? And I think a lot of people, like, they don't realize that. Again, it goes back to the correlation between our mental, our physical, and our emotional health and our spiritual health. All of those things are connected. And if you are discrediting one of them, you're discrediting the other one as well. When I have the conversation with people about like suppressing their emotions, I always bring up the story of Jesus when he was in the Garden of Gethsemane and he was crying out to God like, look, man, I ain't gonna hold you. I don't really want to do this for real. Like, I don't. I mean, like, it's not my will, it's your will. But also, like, I'm scared. You know what I mean? Like, in that moment, Jesus experienced, I cannot remember the name of it, and I always butcher it. But in that moment when Jesus was in the Garden of Gethsemane before he was getting ready to go to the cross, he literally experienced the highest form of anxiety that any human being can ever experience. And there's literally a clinical term for it, to the point where you become so anxious that you start to like sweat blood. That's literally what happened to Jesus when he was in the Garden of Gethsemane. Yeah. And when I talk to people about them suppressing their emotions or them experiencing these like mental health concerns as far as depression and anxiety, I always bring up that story, because it's like Jesus was put here on earth to be the example for us, to be the human example for us, right? Yeah. So if he himself experienced the highest form of anxiety, what makes you think you exempt? Right. Like, all of us are going to at all. All of us are going to experience anxiety in some type of form. All of us are going to experience some type of mental health concern in our lifetime in some type of form. But I also wholeheartedly love the fact that in the story, when Jesus was in the Garden of Gethsemane, he gave us the perfect picture and the perfect example of how I'm not going to allow what I'm feeling in this moment to take away from what I know God needs to get done. You know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, yes, he expressed to God, like, okay, I'm terrified, I'm anxious, I'm scared, but at the end of all of this, let your will be done, right? And I think that also gives us comfort, especially us as believers, to know that, like, God cares about the small things. Like, a lot of times we look at our emotions and we like, okay, well, I feel sad, but it's cool. Like, I'm gonna be all right. I'm gonna just tough it out. Like, no, God cares about your sadness. Now, granted, is your sadness gonna change the trajectory of what needs to happen? No. But you can allow God to give you some type of comfort if you just go to him and take those emotions to him.
Yeah. Now, do you feel like when so do you use faith and spirituality in all of your sessions? Is that something that's kind of like, oh, if you want to work with me, that's what we have to do?
No. So, okay. With me working with veterans and that being a government position, we cannot, we can't talk about it. Now, granted, there are certain times where like the veterans will bring it up and they are very vocal about like their beliefs,
what they believe.
Now, some of them, I feel like they try to, because I be trying to feel them out, but I feel like they be trying to feel me out too. So some of them will just like flat out be like, yep, I believe in Jesus Christ. Like, and some of them will talk about their faith and how they feel like that has kind of like positively affected their mental health, different things like that. But yeah, with me being at the VA, I very seldom am able to talk about it there.
And that makes sense.
Yeah, and if it is brought up, it's because they brought it up. Now, the private practice that I work for, where I'm predominantly working with the Black and Brown community, we talk about it all the time. My private practice that I work for, the owner of it, her name is Elizabeth White, and she is amazing, and she makes it very known that we are a faith-based organization as well. It's not something that we like push down people's throats or anything like that, but like if you bring it up, we definitely gonna talk about it. So in that space, I still don't push for it. Because again, I want to respect my clients' beliefs. I want to respect where they're at, and I never want them to feel as if I'm trying to push onto them what works for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah, but if they bring it up, I'm all in. Like, I have some
like, let's do it.
No, literally, some of my clients, like they have even requested, like, hey, are you okay with like just praying for me after we finish our sessions? Don't worry about it. I got you. Like, because I wholeheartedly believe that all of these things are connected. And even when it comes to some of these mental health concerns that we experience, some of it can definitely be spiritual as well. Some of it can be spiritual warfare and all of that. And if you don't necessarily have a connection with the Father, if you don't have a relationship with Christ, then like it can be hard to, I guess, kind of like break through certain things if we are just consistently being blind to the fact that some of what we experience is spiritual.
Yeah, I think so too. And that kind of makes me think about how sometimes people will not want to get, well, so like trauma and faith kind of go side by side in my eyes, because sometimes you might go through trauma and blame it on faith. You might blame it on God. You might blame it on anything other than what might actually be going on within you. So I think that's really interesting to hear you say that. How is it when you're building trust with people who are starting off therapy, but they are really focused on God will help me, prayer will help me, that's the only thing that'll help me? How do you build trust with people for them to learn the psychological aspect of therapy and how that can actually be beneficial as well?
Yeah. Honestly, I don't think I have necessarily had any clients that was just 100% like, oh no, like I just gotta pray about it and I'm gonna be fine. The clients that have come to me, I make it very well known to them, look, if you're gonna be sitting in here with me, then you gotta be prepared for like what's gonna come with this. You know what I mean? Like I'm not that therapist that's just gonna be taking your money. If you're not getting nothing out of this, then let's go ahead and discharge you or transfer you to somebody else, you know? Yeah. So the people that I have had, the clients that I've had that are very in tune and in touch with their spirituality, they say, for instance, if I bring up something like mindfulness, when we hear the word mindfulness, some people immediately think about like yoga practices and like Zen and like all of these like Eastern like practices that like go completely against Christianity. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When I bring up mindfulness, that's not what I'm talking about, you know? So like I have to break it down to them so they can understand it. I remember I had a client, she was actually at the VA. Yeah, I had a client at the VA, and she used to experience like high amounts of anxiety. And she would talk to me all the time about how she was praying, she was going to church, she was doing all the things. And she was like, but nothing is working. Like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And when I get super anxious, I can't control my breathing and da-da-da-da-da. I'm like, okay, well, let's tap into some mindfulness stuff. So when I gave her some different exercises to do, I always tell my clients, like, go on YouTube and type in like guided meditation practices for anxiety, or they have like some specific ones that are called like leaves on a stream or progressive muscle relaxation, different things like that. Some of the videos are very much just focusing on you being in tune with your internal state, you being in tune with like how your body is feeling, you focusing on like breathing in and breathing out and belly breathing, different stuff like that. Some of it, if you go like deeper into it, it can definitely go into some of those other practices.
Because I was going to ask.
Yes, it can definitely go into some of those other practices. So I just tell people to be very mindful with what they are listening to. Mindfulness is not something that is bad, like at all. But I think I've noticed even when I go into some churches, I have to be very careful with my wordplay, like with what I'm saying. Yeah. So if I bring up the word mindfulness, I'm immediately telling them like, no, this is really just you being able to practice being still, you know? Scripture even talks about us just being still before the Lord, right? So if we look at the connection that mindfulness has with scripture, because a lot of these worldly terms, they really are biblical, but the world has just taken them and like switched them to match like what they want it to be like. You know what I mean? So going back to me working with that specific client, I gave her like some direct meditation practices that she could do, which I really wanted her to just focus in on the deep breathing aspect of it to help with her anxiety. She did a deep dive search into YouTube and started looking up all these different other practices, and I didn't know what she was doing. So when she came back her next session, she was like, yeah, I don't think I can do that mindfulness stuff. Like, it just doesn't feel right. I feel like it goes against my Christianity and blah, 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 blah. So when I was asking her to tell me like what was some of the stuff that she was using, and she was letting me know, and I'm like, that's not what I told you to do. Like, so I think that we have to be very, very mindful for real. Because some of those things can really be like gateways and opening up the door to other like stuff in the spiritual realm that we don't want to have to deal with. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think that we just have to be very careful with the practices that we are using. The only time that I feel like I've ever kind of like, I guess, bumped up against like my clinical / spiritual background with somebody that is just very gun-ho spiritual and it's just all things Jesus and nothing else, is when I'm in churches speaking. And a lot of it
I can imagine that.
Yeah, a lot of it is like older leadership. But one thing that I try to get them to understand as well is like when it comes to this mental health stuff, it's not new. Y'all just didn't have the language for it when y'all was growing up, but it's not new.
Yeah.
So I'm just giving you the language for it, you know?
Yeah, like anxiety was an attitude, but it's like, I don't have an attitude. I'm anxiety.
Anxious, actually. Yeah. So
it's like you'll say that to them now.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, sorry.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
No, I was saying, so you'll say that to them now, and they're just like, I don't have anxiety. Like that's some mental health issue.
Yeah.
That's not what that, I think we need to explore some things. We really need to understand what is making us act this way.
Yeah.
I wish everyone was open to these practices and open to just learning more about mental health, especially in the church, because it would save so many people if they really got to the root of it and didn't just blame it on just not knowing. But I guess we can't really blame them too much because that's how they grew up. That's how, especially in those Black and brown communities, like you're saying, it was taught to be a defense, like to keep us safe.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. Actually, I try my best not to blame them, but also in the same breath, I'm like, there's too many like
much
avenues.
Knowledge.
Yeah, it's too much education now. So it just gets to the point where it's like you either want to learn it or you don't want to learn it. There's been so many examples of people that I have encountered in different churches who, even people within these leadership positions, who are wrestling with different mental health concerns. And because y'all just want to slap Jesus on everything, y'all are living the rest of y'all lives like very miserable, you know? I mean, even when we look at some of these pastors, like y'all are up here preaching out of y'all unhealed trauma, you know? So instead of y'all just giving people straight Bible and straight scripture, you taking that Bible and you taking that scripture and you applying it to your trauma, and then you teaching it to the people in the congregation.
Yeah.
So what you carrying from your trauma is jumping onto them, right? So
I'm sprinkling it out.
It's a cycle. Literally, it's a cycle, and I'm just like, y'all, we have to do better. Like, we literally have to do better. But I think it really just starts with people having an open mind, number one, and them being able to receive something different. Like, our generation isn't going to present y'all stuff the same way that y'all presented it. Because, again, y'all just simply didn't know better. And that's okay. We're here to make sure you know better now.
Yeah. Do you think it's because they might think if I start therapy, that means I don't trust God or I don't trust that he can fix things? Do you think they struggle with that a lot?
I think a lot of people do in churches. For real, I do. But I think that it's because, again, it goes back to how they were raised. Because even with how we were raised, like you said earlier when we first got on here, that you were told to just like pray about stuff and that you'll be fine, you know? I always tell people though, like, faith without works is dead. So how can you just tell somebody to pray about something, but then you do nothing following behind what you just prayed about? You know what I mean? Like, we got to meet God halfway. Now, granted, if God wants to do like a sudden healing, okay, we know he can do that, right? But at the end of the day, life is very complex and complicated. The stuff that we experience is complex and complicated. Our trauma, our mental health, our relationships, everything has so many different layers to it. So why do we not believe that healing has layers to it as well? And why do we believe that we can't go into other like sectors to receive our healing? Because even when we go back to thinking about like psychosis and different like mood and personality disorders, a lot of people who experience stuff like that have to be on medication just for them to kind of like be regulated or to be able to function in any type of way in society. So if you telling somebody they got psychosis because they having visual and auditory hallucinations that they got demons, and you trying to cast out demons, and they just really need like maybe therapy once a week and like a psychotropic medication and they'll be cool, like they'll be able to manage it, you're doing that person a disservice. And I think that in return, that also then affects that individual's relationship with God, because then they're like, okay, well, you just told me to pray about it and I'll be fine, but I did that and the Lord still ain't moved on my behalf. So what I'm supposed to do now?
Yeah. That's a good, When you say it that way, it does make sense how someone can really just kind of turn on God just because of all the talk, like, you need this, you need that. Well, okay, well, God is supposed to be fixing this for me. Why isn't he? It's because you need medication. You need something much more than just that. And we're kind of talking about access in a way. So one thing I do love, like you said, you work with veterans in Black and brown communities, and access is not always something that we do have. Though it is available, it's not always easy. And like I said in the beginning, well, not in the beginning, but like I said, trauma and faith kind of sit side by side. What have you noticed about those communities and how they carry trauma differently than maybe those who do have access?
That's a good question. I think that when it comes to people that have access and people that do not have access, especially if you look at kind of like some of these underserved and underrepresented communities, which is going to be Black and brown people, unfortunately. A lot of their trauma is passed down from generation to generation to generation to generation. And I think a lot of it even goes all the way back to slavery times, you know? And because it's being passed down from generation to generation, and a lot of people do not have access to the resources that they need to be able to address their trauma, what they're doing is they are taking the trauma from the previous generation and allowing that to, well, I don't want to say allowing that, because sometimes people can definitely, because of the environment and the society that they were raised in, that trauma can kind of like stick with them. But I feel like what's happening is the trauma from the previous generation is being passed down to a new generation. And because that generation did not know how to address their trauma or their mental health concerns, this new generation picks up on that same habit, right? And then they get in relationship or they get trauma bonded to somebody else who has trauma, and then y'all birthing a trauma baby, and like it just keeps going. It just keeps going on and on and on.
Never ends.
So I think that's kind of like the difference when it comes to people who do have resources and people who don't have resources. Now, granted, even some of the people that do have resources, of course, they have generational trauma as well. But I think the big difference is them being able to at least have language to what it is that they're experiencing. You know what I mean? Like, especially if we're talking about like the Black and brown community versus like people who maybe just be white Americans. Like, a white person will tell you in a second, oh my gosh, I'm so anxious, right? Like they don't have a problem telling you that, right? But when it comes to like people within the African American community, our anxiety may show up as us being angry or us being pissed off. Like, you never know how it could show up. But them being connected to resources, I think that is the biggest disservice that we do to people. It does suck at the fact that some mental health resources are very expensive. Like, that's just the reality of it, you know? Every place isn't going to accept every insurance. You may have to pay out of pocket for a session, and some of these out of pocket sessions, like, they run somewhere between $100 to $150, depending on what type of provider you being seen by.
And it's every week. Once you go every week or every other week.
So like, I get it, but also there are a lot of different programs that people can get connected to that will kind of like help to cover those services, or at least like give them some type of like discounted rate. I know like Eskenazi, I think Community Health has one too, but I know for sure Eskenazi does. They have like a mental health center that they just built it. And they accept walk-ins between the hours of 9 a.m. to noon. You could just go in there, like, whatever insurance you got, let them know, like, I'm having a crisis, I need to be seen by a therapist today. They would literally let you sit down and have a session with somebody.
Yeah. I wish they sometimes, well, like jobs even made it more, um, I can't find the word I'm looking for, but just let their employees
Yeah.
know that we do
Yeah.
have these resources. I know for me, when I first started out in therapy, I tried my job's therapist first. I took my 8 sessions to see if I liked it, and I did, and then I took that from there. But like you said, there are a lot of resources out there if people are really going to take the time and
Yeah.
look for them. So kind of moving into really, I guess, kind of the healing aspect of this conversation. When we think about faith and therapy being a partnership, what does that look like day to day if we want to get better?
Yeah. I think just having a constant awareness of the importance of both of them, never getting to the point where you're like, okay, well, this is just a mental health concern for me and I'm gonna go to therapy, but after that, like nothing else, or either I'm gonna just pray about it and I'm gonna just leave it in the hands of God and I ain't gonna do nothing else about it. Like when we discredit our emotions, when we discredit our spirituality, we are also discrediting our humanity as a whole. Because like the Lord literally built us to have emotions. Like that's just what it is. So what it looks like on a day-to-day basis, it can look different for everybody, But for me specifically, I know the way that I choose to go about it, and I ain't perfect. I don't do it every single day, but the way that I choose to go about it, like honestly, if I'm being real, today was the perfect example. Like I was feeling very heavy today. I had a lot of stuff that I had to get done. And then just like my emotions was just not all over the place, but like the weather is changing. I was just like, what is happening? Why do I feel sad? Like what's going on? So with that, I took the time to pray. I took the time to listen to my worship music, but also in the same breath, I took the time to check my emotions. I reached out to somebody. I reached out to my guy best friend, Chris, and I was just letting him know, look, like, bro, I'm sad today. I don't know what's going on. Like, and he like, okay, let's talk about it. So like I utilized my support system. I did an emotional check-in with myself, but then I also spent time in worship. I also allow myself to pray and take those emotions to God,
I love that.
So we think about when we think about the act of surrenderance, our walk with Christ is us just completely living a surrendered life. When we say yes to God, that means we saying no to a whole bunch of other stuff that we don't even know we saying no to, right?
Yeah.
So literally, so when I think about the fact that us as believers, we live a consistent life of surrenderance, I also think about how I can surrender my mental health and my emotions over to God as well. So on a day-to-day basis, regardless of how I feel, I'm taking those emotions to Christ. I'm laying them at the feet of Jesus and I'm surrendering them over to him. That doesn't mean that you're not going to feel, right? But that means that you are saying, okay, God, I feel this, but I got stuff to do, so I'm going to give it to you. And I know that I'm not in this alone. So even in the midst of this anxiety, this sadness, this anger, this frustration, I'm trusting you to at least give me some type of exchange of comfort and peace. We can't expect God to like give us something if we ain't gave him nothing either.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't keep asking and taking without giving anything. Yeah. What would you say to someone who wants to start therapy, but they still kind of feel that guilt, like, I don't trust God if I decide I want to go through with therapy?
I would say don't overthink it. I think a lot of times, especially when it comes to people that are very, very logical and they aren't as in tune with their emotions as they should, instead of them feeling their way through things, they think their way through things. And a lot of times we think about something so much that we think our way out of doing it. Like if it doesn't make sense, I ain't gonna do it, right?
I can be a prisoner to that.
Yeah, look, I can too, right? But for somebody that is a therapist and somebody that has been in therapy, and I'm sure you can attest to this as well, sometimes therapy don't make no sense. Sometimes, sometimes you're going to go into a session and you're not going to like have an exact thing that you want to talk about, but your therapist may like pull on something and you like, dang, I didn't even know we was going to talk about that today. And then you leave the session crying, or you leave the session feeling free. You know what I mean? So I would just say don't overthink it, you know? And also, if you have a concern or an issue with trying out therapy because you think that it's like too worldly, or because you think that it's not of God, find a Christian therapist. There's a lot of Christian therapists that are out there. I tell a lot of people to utilize the tool called Psychology Today. It's a website that you literally can just
that's
go on.
That's how I found my therapist.
Yeah, that's how I found mine. You can literally go on Psychology Today, and it has a whole bunch of filters in there. So you can put in like what you're experiencing, depression, anxiety, like relationship concerns, codependency, different stuff like that. You can put in if you want a woman, or if you want a male. You can put in what race or ethnicity. You can put in if you want them to be Christian, if you want them to be non-Christian, all those different types of things, you know. When it comes to therapy, it's not a one size like fits all type deal. You got to keep trying it until you find the person that works for you. And that can be very discouraging at times. I know when I first started my therapy journey, before I became a therapist, I was getting ready to graduate. I went through like 2 different therapists before I landed with the lady that I ended up working with for real. But the other 2 people that I was previously working with, I don't think they were Christians. We never really talked about it. But girl, one of them ghosted me, and the other one, she got on the call and was just so flustered and all over the place. Like, hair was all over the place. I said, yeah, this ain't gonna work. It's not gonna work.
What's going on with you?
You can't help me.
That happened to me, though, too. Because I had been talking to my therapist I've had a few sessions, and I had realized that they probably wouldn't have worked for me because they kept getting somebody's name wrong. And I'm like, I need to remember this name.
No, literally.
Why do you keep forgetting it? Just making up names. I'm like, I never even said that name.
Because who is that? You're not paying attention to detail. No. And I know for some people,
didn't feel like anything.
Yeah, I know for some people that can be discouraging, because honestly, for me, I was going through like my deep depression during that time. I was having those suicidal thoughts during that time. And the fact that, number one, somebody ghosted me. Number two, you coming on here, just, I don't even know what's wrong with you. Every time we get on session, like, it was very discouraging, because I'm like, okay, I gotta find somebody else again. Like, I need immediate relief right now, and I gotta go through the whole process of finding another therapist. But don't allow yourself to get discouraged, because I promise you, once you land with the person that really fits for you, it's gonna be worth it.
Yeah. And I think just touching on, if anyone does have, they feel like they're hesitant to do therapy because of their faith and everything, I hope that they do realize that therapy can actually clear a way for you to be closer to God.
Absolutely.
It can get all of those negative thoughts out of your head and allow you to really just sit and be like, oh, I can hear you now. I don't hear all the negative things about myself. I can actually hear you. So
yes.
I think that's really great.
Yeah.
So what is a simple step that someone can take to begin kind of their healing journey that is spiritual and mental?
I would say just be real with yourself. You know, I think a lot of times, because of the busyness of our lives and because of all the responsibilities that we have, we identify that something is off. You know what I mean? Whether it be us choosing to suppress how we feel, whether it be us knowing that something traumatic happened to us, and we see how it's drastically affecting our lives, the way that we interact with each other, the way that we go about relationships. We see the effects of it, right? But we choose to ignore it because we feel like we don't have the time to do it, right? Or we feel like, okay, if I try to like heal from this, or if I try to like uncover this, it's going to be too much. Like, it's too much for me to carry on my own. You know what I mean? But if you pause for a second and allow yourself to just be real with where you are at, because God already knows where you at, you know? He knows where you at emotionally. He knows the fact he was with you when whatever happened to you happened, you know? But I think that if you allow yourself to pause for a second and just be real with where you are at, that is the first step of you being able to heal in any type of capacity. I don't care what you healing from. If you are being dishonest with how a situation has made you feel or how a person has made you feel, or if you are trying to ignore all of the things that you see are kind of like falling apart in your life due to the fact that you have not healed, you're going to continue to be in that state. Nobody can get you to the point where you are ready to heal except for yourself. People can do all the praying for you. People can do all the encouraging you, all those different types of things. But if you're not honest with yourself, and if you are just completely ignoring what's happening, you're doing yourself a disservice. So I think the first step is just being able to acknowledge, okay, something is off. I got to be honest and I got to be real with myself, and I need to take this step so that I can start my healing journey.
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, Keisha, girl, I'm sure somebody has told you this before, but you, ma'am, are walking in your purpose. Everything that you spoke about, I could tell just how passionate you are about mental health, about faith, and about all communities, not even just the veterans and Black and Browns, but just everyone as a whole. And I think that is a beautiful thing to just witness. It's just been wonderful having this conversation with you, and I'm so glad that you have held space for us today to have these conversations, for me to ask these questions to you. One more thing I do want to ask, what is one truth that someone can hold on to who is trying to heal in both spaces?
I would say that number one, you're stronger than what you believe. And number two, you are in control of your emotions. Your emotions are not in control of you. Those are my top two things. Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much again for having this conversation with me. Where can the people find you?
You can follow me on Instagram. It's just my name, Lakeisha J. Johnson. You can find me on Facebook. My name, Lakeisha Johnson. If you're looking to get connected to any therapy services, if you're a veteran, of course you can go through the VA. But if you're not dealing with anything that is in the realm of psychosis, I can't help you, but I know some people that can. But if you are wanting to get connected to therapy within the private practice that I work for, it is called the Well Counseling and Consulting Group. You can literally go to our website. The link is also in my bio, in my Instagram bio, but you can just go to Google, type in the Well Counseling and Consulting Group. We're located out west where the pyramids are at. Our office is in there. I know
what that is.
Yeah, I do virtual and in-person sessions, and so do the other people on our team as well. But if that's something that you're interested in, you could just go to our website. It literally gives you a full rundown list of every single therapist that we have that's a part of our team. There's a bio that's also connected to each one of our names as well. I tell people all the time, like even when I go and do talks and different things like that and podcasts, if I'm not a good fit for you, that is totally fine. I would rather you be with somebody that's going to be a good fit for you. So don't hesitate to scroll through there and look at all the different options that we do have. We have an amazing team. We accept a lot of different insurances, but once you get connected to like our admin team, they'll let you know what insurances we accept and what we don't. But we also run like grants and different things like that. A lot of the times, I know right now we have one where we're offering $50 sessions. So if anybody needs like a discounted rate for sessions right now, that would be a really good connection to have.
Yeah, that's perfect. And I'll definitely have all of that information too in the show notes as well. So make sure you all check that out. But thank you so much again. This was amazing. I loved it.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening once again. And to everyone, if you've been carrying your healing quietly, maybe this is your sign that it's safe to tend to your mind and your spirit. This is Finder and Keeper, and I'll see you next time.